Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and today I will be doing the post-release of Neuvillette, the recent 5-star Hydro character in Genshin Impact. I will be talking about the type of things that I like about him, the type of things that I don't like about him, the way you actually want to build him, and the teams that you want to pair him up with. And then I will give my overall rating of how I feel about him as a character. But first, I need your help for a future video. I'm calling all Neuvillette mains, Neuvillette players, and Neuvillette enjoyers. I am interested in doing a Rate My Character edition of Neuvillette, where I take a look at your guys' builds and giving you advice on how you can improve your build. Or if you want to flex out your build in one of my future videos, then check in the link in the description or one of the top posts in the comment sections down below for a link to a Google form where you input your UID into a system on a website, and it pulls up all your stats of all your relics of your characters, where you take a screenshot of your Neuvillette build, upload that to the form for me to easily look at your builds. Now, if you know of another tool that is similar of the one that I posted in the form, then it is totally fine to use. Just fill it out, follow all the rules and instructions, and that's it. Again, the link will be in the description down below or the top comment in the comment section down below. And now let's get right into the video. First, starting off with the things that I like about him. He is amazing to play. I very much love his animations. He's very consistent. It feels nice and smooth whenever using his charge attack. It just I feel like they give him a little bit more quality in terms of his animation output whenever using his skill, and then transitioning into his charge attack is just very consistent. He doesn't feel clunky at all, which was one of the worries that I had about him, but he feels very good. The next thing that I like about him is that he deals great damage. It's not the best compared to like the other Hydro characters that deal a lot of damage like Yolan and Xingqiao, but nonetheless he is a very good hyper carry. And following up with that second point, my third one is that he has great AoE. I was kind of concerned of like how much AoE he was gonna be able to do, considering that his charge attack only attacks one way. I was very concerned of like how wide his charge attack beam will be, but when having tested it and playing him, I don't think he has any issues at all with AoE. The only trouble you really would have him is if you have bad positioning or you don't really know how to position him well when attacking enemies or a mob of enemies. But nonetheless, his AoE is great. It deals a lot of consistent damage, and also it shoots past enemies, so it's not like it stops at the first enemy you hit. It hits like all the way through past other enemies, and it has very long range, which is very nice and very good for the amount of great damage that he deals. The fourth thing that I like about him is that he actually has great mobility when using his charge attack. Whenever you use it, I was kind of thinking that he would stand still and you charge it, but actually you can move pretty fast with him. It's not like fast as you are sprinting, but it is fast enough to dodge some attacks if you are good with it. Another thing that is really good with him is that he has good hydro application, where each time his charge attack hits an enemy, it hits twice, giving it a good amount of hydro application, which is very good for the amount of reaction teams that you can pair him in, like Electro Charge, Hyper Bloom, etc. The next point that I like about him that I was kind of surprised by is that his healing is actually really good, because in case you don't know, whenever he uses his charge attack, he decreases in health every 1 second, and the orbs that he absorbs decreases the amount of time that it takes to activate his charge attack. But each time that he absorbs one of the orbs, he heals up for a very good amount, where it makes it feel like you don't really need a healer at all, which is actually really nice. Obviously it depends if you're playing him in the abyss and there's tough enemies that dealing a lot of damage against you, but like if you play really good, you really don't need to rely on a healer at all. And the last thing I found good about him is that he's actually very easy to build. You want to build him on the Malachosi set, which is a very good set, making it easier to build his crit stats, because the only stats you really want him is crit damage and HP. You can go away with energy recharge or elemental mastery, but it kind of depends on like what kind of teams you are wanting to pair him up with, or how you want to build him actually as like a sub DPS and mainly focusing on reaction teams. Or if you want to build him as a true hyper carry, then you definitely want to focus on stats that focus on his damage, like crit damage and HP percent. Another thing that I found very surprising is that you can kind of get away with an HP circlet. It may not be the most damage you do depending on like what kind of constellations you have. Like if you have C2, I found out that it is actually better to run an HP circlet, because if you have his signature and also C2, then like getting an HP circlet with a good amount of crit damage on it will actually be a lot better. Not by a lot, but it is definitely the most you can deal out of him. But if you're running him with like an HP type of weapon like Prototype Ember, then you definitely want to run him on a crit damage circlet. But again, it honestly depends on like the stats of your entire build. And now moving on to the things that I don't like about him. One of the things that I really don't like about him is his application only comes from his charge attack and not really from his burst and skill. And what I mean by that is that whenever you use his skill or elemental burst, there really isn't that much hydro application to come from it. It's only like one instance from his elemental skill and like 1 or 2 or 3 instances from his elemental burst, but like they're very quick to the point where like you can't really rely on it. You only really use it whenever you use his charge attack, which has very fast consistent attacks. But like when taking a look at his kit as a whole, it doesn't make it look as good, which kind of sucks because like if he did have good hydro application from his skill and elemental burst, then he would definitely be a top tier hydro character. If only they made his skill and burst a little bit more worthwhile instead of just only relying on it to produce the hydro orbs he needs for his charge attack. Another thing that I found when playing with Neuvillette is that he doesn't have enough supports in the game to make him feel a lot better. And what I mean by that is that he doesn't really have supports that really fit with the type of kit that he has, compared to someone like Bennett where like he really applies to all attack scaling characters, or to other characters like Pharaoh-san, Shenhe that increase the damage for their specific elements. So for his release, it kind of felt underwhelming when trying to create a good hyper carry team for him in terms of just fully focusing on his damage alone, only really to rely on using Kazuha or any other Anemo character, Zhongli for the shield shred, and really any other character that like adds like a third reaction or possibly gives him some damage like a second hydro character like Mona. I don't know, for him at his release and knowing the kind of supports that we have available now and knowing that there isn't really a lot of options for him, it kind of sucks. But until 4.2 when Farina comes out, because by the looks of it, she's specifically designed to work with Neuvillette. So only time can change whenever she comes out and see how really good can she really make Neuvillette be. And the last thing that I don't like about him that I found when playing with him is that even though you can move in your charge attack, the really best way to play him is to position yourself in like getting the line of fire, basically in a good position where like it attacks a majority of the enemies in case if you're fighting multiple enemies. But a lot of the times if you're facing an enemy that like doesn't attack towards you and it actually has stagger, if you don't have a shield, it will actually cancel your charge attack completely, making Neuvillette lose DPS. Especially if you use his burst and try to use it twice and get staggered twice, then like you basically are useless with Neuvillette. But like if you're a good player and you are good at dodging, then I don't think you'll have a much issue with him. However, sometimes because of his animation is in front of his hand and also in front of you, the angle might look weird to the point where like you sometimes might not actually see the enemies themselves, or sometimes you might not actually see the kind of attack they're about to do, preventing you from reacting or repositioning to dodge the attack and potentially getting staggered. But honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal in case you're not that experienced in moving around with Neuvillette's charge attack. Alright, moving on to the build and teams. Again, you want to build him on Montrosi set is basically the ideal set for him. Want to build him on crit damage and HP percent, depending on your substats and depending on like what kind of weapon you're using him. If you're using signature, then you can still definitely use a crit damage circlet. But if you do have a signature and you also have C2 and still have a basically good amount of crit damage, then you definitely want to go for HP percent, because then you're basically at the point where you start getting a diminishing return in terms of getting more crit damage, where getting more HP is more beneficial. It's not that big of a difference, but honestly, if you want to min-max his damage, then going HP circlet is definitely the best play. The next thing is his best teams. The best teams that he does work well in is Hyper Bloom and Hyper Carry. Hyper Bloom is always going to be a great reaction because of how good and consistent the damage is. But the only thing is that like obviously when playing in the Hyper Bloom team, it does make his damage feel a lot lower because a lot of the focus is on the reaction itself. So if you do want to play Neuvillette and making him deal the most damage he can, then I definitely recommend just using him in a Hyper Carry team, which is just basically giving him elements that basically maximizes his damage. For example, his kit requires him to have at least like 3 elemental reactions like Swirl, Grow with Anemo, Crystallize with Geo, Electro Charge with Electro, Freeze with Cryo, any combos that increases his damage basically. And lastly, the type of characters you definitely would like to pair with him is Zhongli if you want to use a shield and use his shield damage buff. Next is an Anemo character. All Anemo characters are basically good, like Sucrose, Venti, Kazuha, an Electro character like Fischl, Raiden, Kuki, Miko, a crowd character for Freeze like Kea, Rosaria, and possibly a second Hydro character, but not really many options because the best options don't work with him at all, like Xingqiu and Yelan don't really work with charge attacks. So the only options is really Mona that gives like a good damage buff, or using Kokomi for a little bit extra healing in possibly slightly better hydro application in case you do need it more. But none of those two options matter until Farina actually releases and could potentially make Neuvillette a lot better. But honestly, only time can tell of like how many changes she would go through to finally see how good can she really make Neuvillette out to be. And so with all of that, my overall rating for Neuvillette is he is a good pull. I don't think he is a bad character. I don't think he's the best character to get, but nonetheless, if you do decide to pull for him, he is a very good choice and a very good hyper carry. Very consistent damage, very consistent animations, doesn't feel clunky to play, an overall good character. My only hope for him is that he gets more supports other than Farina coming in 4.2 in the future to hopefully make him feel way better as a hydro character, because I definitely feel he could be so much better if given very good supports. And that is gonna be it for this post-release video on Neuvillette. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this, then definitely subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video to support it. Check out my Twitch if you want to catch my live streams over there. The link will be in the description below, and don't forget to check out the link to the Google form for the Rate My Character Neuvillette edition. Again, the link will be in the description below or the top comment in the comment sections down below. That's it for today, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.